Picture a stone room the size of a small church. Now fill it with fire, not a fireplace. Fire. 3 open hearths, each one wide enough to roast an ox whole, burning day and night, summer and winter, feast and famine, because if the fire dies, the castle starves. Add the carcasses of 4 pigs hanging from iron hooks in the smoke. Add a cauldron of pottage big enough to drown a man, and men have drowned in smaller. Add boiling fat, flying sparks, knives longer than your forearm, boys with burned hands, and a heat so thick that grown men strip to the waist in January and still sweat through the cloth of their brays. That's the kitchen of a castle in the year 1300, the most dangerous room in the safest building for 50 miles, a place where the lord upstairs eats swan dressed in its own feathers, while the boy who turned the spit for 6 hours eats bread soaked in the drippings, standing up in a corner if he's lucky. A place where you could be scalded blind before breakfast and still be expected to pluck geese by dinner. We're going back there tonight, not as guests at the high table looking down at the food. We're going below, into the smoke. One day, one person. Everything he would have seen, smelled, hauled, burned himself on, and survived. So, I make these history stories, and honestly, I still have no idea if anyone actually sleep to them, or if you're all just lying in the dark thinking about medieval boys carrying buckets of pig blood. Either way, subscribe if you feel like it. Get comfortable. Here we go. The fire is dying. That's the first thing you know, before you know your own name, before you know where you are. Your eyes snap open in the dark and your body is already moving, because some animal part of you's been listening to the fire all night, even while you slept, and the sound has changed. A fire that's alive crackles. It talks. A fire that's dying goes quiet, and quiet is the most terrifying sound in this entire castle. You are supposed to feed it at midnight. You are the fire boy tonight. That is your whole job, your one job, the job they give to the lowest boy in the kitchen, because it is simple, and because failing at it is unforgivable. Keep the great hearth alive until morning. And you fell asleep. You scramble off the sacks of dried peas you sleep on, and your bare feet hit the stone floor, and the stone is warm. Kitchen stone is always warm. It has been warm for 80 years, since the day they first lit these hearths, and it will stay warm until the castle falls. You feel your way across the dark toward the great hearth, and even half dead, even sunk down to embers, it throws enough red light to see by. A bed of coals 10 feet wide, breathing, still breathing, not gone yet. Your hands are shaking as you pull kindling from the stack. Dry birch twigs first, laid across the brightest coals, and you drop to your knees on the warm stone and put your face close to the embers, close enough that the heat presses against your cheeks like 2 hot hands, and you blow. Long, steady breaths, the way Aldith the pot girl taught you in your first week, when you blew in short panicked puffs and nearly killed a fire that only needed patience. The embers brighten with each breath, orange, then gold. Then a single twig catches with a sound like a whisper, and then another, and then the flame stands up. You sit back on your heels, and you realize you've been holding your whole body rigid, and your knees hurt from the stone, and your face is scorched tight from the heat, and you could weep with relief. You don't. You feed the fire instead. Split oak now, laid on carefully, building it back the way you'd build a little house, and by the time the bells ring for prime somewhere above you, the great hearth of the castle kitchen is roaring again, and nobody will ever know. Except Somebody knows. You let it drop. The voice comes from the doorway, from the dark arch that leads to the bakehouse, and your stomach falls through the warm stone floor. Master Aldous, head cook of this castle, ruler of this kitchen, a man who answers to the steward and the steward alone, and the steward answers to the Lord, and the Lord answers to the king, and somewhere in that great chain of the world you are the last and smallest link, and the man at the other end of it is standing in the doorway watching you. He doesn't look angry. That's the frightening thing about Master Aldous. He never looks angry. He's a wide man, not fat, wide, built like a door, with forearms scarred white from 40 years of spitting grease, and a face that shows nothing at all. He crosses the kitchen without hurrying, crouches at the hearth, and holds his palm out over the coals at exactly the height where the spit will hang. He holds it there for a count of 5, reading the fire the way a priest reads Latin. "Half an hour more and you'd have lost the heart of it," he says. "The heart of a fire this size takes a full day to build back." And do you know what happens today? You don't. You shake your head. Lord Robert of Tateshale rides in before Vespers, with 30 in his retinue, and our Lord has commanded a feast. He stands. He looks down at you, kneeling there in the ash with birch bark stuck to your knees. So today, of all the days God has given us, you chose to let the fire drop. I'm sorry, Master. Sorry feeds no one. He turns away, and then, without looking back, you caught it, though. You woke and you caught it. The last boy slept through till the coals went grey. A pause. Fetch water, all of it. Go. And that's it. That's mercy in this kitchen. You take it and you run. Welcome, by the way, to where you are. It's an hour before dawn on a morning in late September in the year of our Lord 1300, and you're in the kitchen of a stone castle in the west of England, in the March country near Wales, where the lords build thick walls because 100 years of raiding taught them to. Your name is what? Walter, your mother called you, after your grandfather, but nobody has called you Walter since you walked here 11 months ago from a village 2 days east, following a cousin's promise that the castle kitchen needed boys and fed them. You are 14 years old. You came with the shirt you wore, a hood your mother made, and a small knife with a handle your father carved from a sheep's horn. That knife is the only thing in this world that is yours. Back home, everyone said the castle would feed you better than the village could. They weren't wrong. They also didn't mention the rest of it. The water. Right. The water. The well stands in the inner yard, 30 paces from the kitchen door, and 30 paces doesn't sound like much until you understand what a castle kitchen drinks in a day. Water for the pottage, water for boiling the salt meat, and then more water, because salt meat has to be boiled twice, or it'll pucker the mouths of everyone in the hall. Water for scalding pigs, water for scouring pots with sand, water for the sauces, water for the fish, water for washing the endless bloody boards. On a feast day, the kitchen will drink 60 buckets or more, and every one of those buckets comes up out of the ground on a rope, hauled by hand, and crosses the yard on somebody's shoulders, and this morning that somebody is you. The yard is cold. That's the thing nobody tells you about kitchen work. The thing your body still hasn't learned to survive gracefully. You live your life between two worlds, the fire world and the cold world, and you cross between them 50 times a day. Inside the kitchen, it's summer forever. A brutal, airless summer that cooks the sweat out of you. Step through the door, and it's September before dawn, and your sweat turns to ice water on your skin, and the shock of it makes your teeth ache. The old cooks all have the same cough. Now you know why. The well rope is wet, and the wet has gone cold overnight, and it burns your palms in that strange way that cold burns, and the bucket comes up heavy, 20 pounds of water swinging on the rope, and you haul it hand over hand while your breath smokes in the dark. Above you, the sky over the eastern wall is turning the colour of a dove's breast. The watchman on the tower coughs. A dog barks somewhere down in the outer bailey once and gives up. The castle is still asleep. All of it. The lord in his great chamber, the lady, the knights, the clerks, the chaplain, 140 souls, all of them sleeping, and every single one of them is going to wake up hungry, and all of that hunger is going to come down the stairs and land on the kitchen. You carry the first 2 buckets in on a wooden yoke across your shoulders, and the yoke bites down into the muscle beside your neck, in the exact spot where it is bitten every morning for 11 months, and there's a callus there now, a hard pad of skin like the pad on a dog's foot. Your body's being rebuilt by this place, one task at a time. Your palms are leather. Your right forearm is bigger than your left from turning the spit. There are 3 burn scars on the back of your right hand, smooth and shiny, like coins melted into the skin. Inside, the kitchen is waking up. And when I say the kitchen is waking up, I need you to understand what that means in a castle in 1300. This isn't a room where one cook makes breakfast. This is a factory. A hot, loud, dangerous factory staffed by a small army, and the army's arriving. Aldith the pot girl comes first, always first after the master, a girl of maybe 16 with forearms like a blacksmith and hands so scarred from scouring that she can pick up a warm coal to light a candle and barely flinch. She goes straight to the pottage cauldron, the great one, the one that never fully empties, because pottage in a castle kitchen is not a dish. It's a continuous event, a rolling stew of peas and beans and barley and whatever else falls into it that has been going, in some sense, for years. New water in, new peas in, stir it down to the bottom with a paddle the size of an oar, because the bottom is where it catches, and caught pottage tastes of despair, and everyone in the hall will know. Then come the 2 undercooks, Hameau and Petit Jean. Hameau is English, big, slow-moving, a man who can bone out a pig carcass in the time it takes to say a paternoster, and who almost never speaks. Petit Jean is not French. Despite the name, he's from Bristol, but he trained under a French cook in some bishop's household and never lets anyone forget it, and he handles the sauces which in this world makes him aristocracy. Sauce is where the money is. Sauce is where the spices go. Any peasant can boil a pig. It takes a man who has stood next to a Frenchman to make camelin sauce. Then the boys, 6 of you, counting you. Dobby, who is your friend more or less, a red-headed boy from the village below the castle who has worked here since he was 9 and knows every secret this kitchen has, including which barrel the bailiff hides ale in, and which flagstone lifts up if you need to hide something small. Little Rob, who is 10 and cries at night and thinks nobody hears him. The others. Boys are the fuel of this kitchen as much as the oak is. Boys haul, boys turn, boys pluck, boys scrub, boys run, and when a boy's hands finally learn enough, he might be allowed to touch food that the Lord will actually eat, and that is the whole ladder of your life, and you are standing on the bottom rung of it with wet feet. The smell of the kitchen in the morning is a thing you could learn to read like a book. Come here, stand in the doorway, breathe in. Wood smoke first, always, oak smoke, the ground note of your entire existence. So soaked into your hair and skin that when you went to mass at Michaelmas, the man next to you shifted away. under the smoke, last night's fat, gone cold and clinging to every surface. A grey film of grease on the stones, the tables, the beams overhead, the inside of your own nose. Under the fat, the pottage, warm and green and faintly sweet, the smell of peas that have surrendered. Under that, blood, because there is always blood somewhere. Today it's the hares hanging by the larder door, 6 of them, heads down, draining into a clay bowl, and the smell of hare blood is dark and metallic and organ deep. And under everything, always, the smell of people. Sweat worked into wool, worked into leather, worked into skin, including yours, especially yours. You had a bath at midsummer. You will have another at Christmas if the year goes well. What? Master Aldous doesn't shout. He never needs to. His voice just arrives next to your ear like something falling off a shelf. Water's not done, and when it's done, wood. And when the wood's done, come to me, because today every soul in this kitchen belongs to me twice over, and I am spending you all like a drunk man spends silver. Lord Robert of Tateshale is a man who notices food. He was at the King's crown wearing at Westminster. He has eaten peacock dressed by the King's own cooks. He lets that sit in the air for a moment, over the pottage steam. Tonight he eats ours. Go. You go. Here's what a feast means from underneath. Forget the trumpets. Forget the hall upstairs with its painted beams and its white tablecloths. A feast, from where you stand, is arithmetic, and the arithmetic is brutal. 140 people live in this castle on an ordinary day. Tonight there will be 30 more, and those 30 matter more than the 140 put together, and everything must be doubled and everything must be perfect, and the day is the same length it always is. That's the whole problem of a feast, not the cooking, the time, the wood. You and Dobby do the wood together because the wood is a 2-boy job. The woodyard sits against the kitchen's north wall, cords of split oak and beech stacked higher than a man, and dry faggots for the bread ovens, and you load the barrow and run it in and stack the wood in the bays beside each hearth, and each barrow load weighs about what you weigh, and this morning the master wants 12 loads, because tonight all 3 hearths burn at once, and the bread ovens fire twice, and a kitchen at full feast. Burn eats close to a ton of wood in a day. Think about that the next time someone shows you a painting of a lovely medieval banquet. Somewhere under that banquet is a ton of wood, and every stick of it crossed a yard on the shoulders of a boy. The splinters find the same soft places every time. The web between thumb and finger, the pad of the palm. You've learned to pull them out with your teeth without stopping. Dobby works beside you, breath smoking, and he talks the whole time because Dobby always talks. It's how he carries weight. 30 in his retinue, he's saying. Knights, squires, grooms, and you know what that means below stairs. 30 more mouths, and every one of them will come sniffing round this door by noon looking to charm bread out of us, and Master will have our hides if the bread count comes up short. Because the pantler counts. What? The pantler counts every loaf like they're his own children. He heaves a log onto the barrow, and Tateshale's men think they're grand. Last time a lord's retinue came through, one of his grooms called me a smoke rat. What did you do? Nothing. Dobber grins, and there's a gap in the grin where a tooth used to be. But his portion of pottage had a beetle in it. Big one. Swam in there all by himself, poor creature. God moves in mysterious ways. You laugh, and the laugh turns to smoke in the cold air, and for a moment the day feels possible. Then the bell rings for prime, properly this time. The chapel bell up in the inner ward, thin and silver in the cold, and beneath it, lower, ye hear the castle waking, shutters knocking open, a horse complaining in the stables, the armoury door groaning, voices in the hall above, servants dragging trestles across the floor, a sound that comes down through 8 feet of stone as a kind of giant's grumbling. The whole vast stone animal of the castle stretching itself, hungry, back inside. The heat hits you at the door like a wall you have to walk through, and your cold tight skin loosens all at once, prickling, and you're sweating again before you've stacked the first log. Master Aldous stands at the great table in the centre of the kitchen, and on the table in front of him is the day, laid out in flesh. Look at it. A whole pig, scalded and scraped pale, split down the spine, that Hamo is already breaking into its parts with a cleaver, each blow landing with a flat wet chock into the oak of the block itself dished in the middle from decades of exactly this. 24 chickens dead but not plucked, a soft mountain of feathers with feet, the 6 hares, a basket of eels from the castle's own stew pond still moving, a slow muscular knot of them, because eels refuse to understand that they are dead until well after the fact. A salted haunch of venison from the Lord's own chase, crusted white. Baskets of onions, of leeks with the field mud still on them, of cabbages the size of a man's head. A sack of almonds in the west of England that grew somewhere under a Spanish sun and crossed the sea to get to this table, and cost accordingly, and will be pounded by a boy, by you probably, into milk for the fast day dishes, because tomorrow is Friday and even feasting bends the knee to Friday. And at the master's right hand, apart from everything else, a small locked box of dark wood with iron corners. You know what's in the box. Everyone knows what's in the box. Pepper, ginger, cinnamon, saffron, which is worth more than its weight in silver, actual silver. You could trade the saffron in that box for a decent horse. Cloves and mace from islands so far away that no man in this castle could point toward them. The spices come up from the fairs, bought by the steward with the Lord's money, and they live in that locked box, and Master Aldous wears the key on a thong around his neck, under his shirt against his skin, and he will wear it until the day he dies, or the day the steward takes it from him, whichever comes first. That box is why he is master. Anyone can be taught to roast. The box is trust, and trust in a castle is the only coin that matters. Right, says Master Aldous, to the whole kitchen, without raising his voice, and the whole kitchen stops to listen anyway. 3 removes tonight. First remove, brawn with mustard, pottage of the good sort, chickens in Cretonais. Second remove, the venison, roast pig with a sharp sauce, the hares. Third remove, eels in brouet, fritters, and a subtlety, if Petit-Jean's hands remember what a bishop taught them. Petit-Jean sniffs, which from Petit-Jean is a promise. Bread count is doubled, the bakehouse fires within the hour. What? Your name, dropped into the middle of it, stops your heart. You're on the spit today, all day. The pig first, the venison after, and hear me. He crosses to you, and up close his eyes are pale grey, like the fire's own ash, and they do not blink very much. Lord Robert notices food. If the pig is scorched on one side and raw on the other, our lord is shamed in his own hall, in front of his own guest, and shame rolls downhill. Boy, it rolls down every stair in this castle, and it will land on you, even, slow, and steady, from now until Vespers. Do you understand me? Yes, master. Then eat something. You won't get another chance. And that, right there, that last sentence, is the thing about Master Aldous that took you months to see. He is hard the way the yoke is hard, the way the stone floor is hard. But he told you to eat. In 11 months he has never once forgotten to tell a boy to eat. You take your bread and a scrape of yesterday's dripping, and you eat it standing in the corner by the wood bay, fast the way all kitchen boys eat, hunched around the food like it might be taken, because sometimes, in other places, in your other life, it was. The dripping is pig fat gone velvet with cold, salted, flecked with brown scraps from the bottom of the pan, and spread on rough maslin bread it is, and you will hold this opinion for the rest of your life. Better than anything the Lord will eat tonight. Then you go to the fire, and the fire takes the rest of your day. Let me tell you about turning a spit, because I promise you, whatever you're imagining, it's worse. The great hearth is not a fireplace. It's a stone cave, 10 feet across and 6 feet deep. And the fire inside it is not a campfire. It's a long bed of coals raked into a glowing bar, built and rebuilt all day by feel. The spit itself is a rod of iron, 7 feet long, thick as your thumb at the ends and square in the middle so the meat can't slip and spin free. It rests on 2 iron dogs, tall andirons with hooks at different heights, so the meat can be raised or lowered as the fire commands. And at one end of the spit there is a handle, and at that handle there is a boy, and today the boy is you. You sit on a low stool at the side of the hearth. Not in front, at the side, because in front of that fire is nowhere a human being can stay. Even at the side, the heat comes at you like something with intent. The left half of your body, the fire half, cooks. Your left cheek goes tight and shining. Your left arm bakes through the sleeve. Meanwhile, your right half, the room half, sits in the ordinary draughty air of the kitchen, so that you are, at all times, one half-roasted boy and one cold boy, seamed together down the middle. There's a screen, a woven wattle panel soaked in water, that stands between you and the worst of it, and there's a leather flap you drape over your working arm, and none of it is enough. It's just the difference between unbearable and barely bearable, and barely bearable is the entire architecture of your life. Hamo brings the pig. Not the whole pig, the 2 great sides of it, and he and Petit Jean run the spit through and truss it with wet cord and set skewers to hold it square, and Hamo tests the balance by spinning the spit once between his palms, watching how it settles, adjusting, spinning again. A badly balanced spit fights the boy all day. A well-balanced one only tortures him. Hamo, who has said perhaps 9 words to you in 11 months, sets the spit onto the dogs, looks at you, and says the 10th. Slow, and you begin. Turn. The handle is iron, and the iron heats up through the morning, until you have to wrap it in a rag, and then the rag chars and you wet another. Turn. The pig hisses. Fat wakes up inside it, softens, gathers, and begins to fall, drop by drop, into the long dripping pan below, and each drop lands with a small sharp spit, and some drops miss the pan and land on the coals instead, and go up in a flare of orange flame and black smoke. And the smell that comes off the first hour of a roasting pig is so dense and so good that it is genuinely a kind of suffering, hungry as you always are to sit inside that smell and turn the handle. Turn. Your shoulder learns the circle, not your hand, your whole shoulder, because a loaded spit with 2 sides of pig on it has real weight, and every turn is a small lift, a small resistance, thousands of times. There's a rhythm you fall into. Everyone finds their own. Yours is tied to breathing, a full turn to a slow breath in, a full turn to a slow breath out, and if you keep to the breath, the meat cooks even. and Master Aldous' ash-grey eyes, which pass over you maybe once every quarter hour, find nothing. The kitchen roars along around you. This is the strange privilege of the spit boy. You cannot leave the fire, so the whole day comes to you, like sitting on a stone in the middle of a river. Aldith hauls the pottage paddle in great slow circles and sings under her breath. The same 3 lines of some song over and over. She may not know the rest. Nobody asks. Petit Jean has claimed the far end of the great table for his sauces and defends it like a bridge. He's making the sharp sauce for the pig, and you can follow it with your nose across the room. The vinegar note first, wine vinegar, high and bright over the fat smell, then the crushed garlic. Then, when Master Aldous unlocks the box and weighs pepper into Jean's mortar with his own hands, watching the balance like a money-lender, the pepper, which you smell as much in your chest as in your nose. The mortar is bronze, the pestle rings against it. All morning under everything, that ringing, grinding, circling sound like a slow, angry bell. Little Rob and another boy pluck chickens by the door, half outside so the feathers blow away instead of into the sauces, and the down sticks to their sweaty faces anyway, and they blow it off their lips over and over all morning. A tiny sound of endless small defeat, and the door. All morning, the door. Because a castle kitchen isn't sealed off from the world, it's a crossroads, and everyone in the castle has a reason to pass through it, and everyone who passes through it wants something. The pantler's boy, coming for the trenchers, the thick stale loaves that will be cut into plates for the hall, because in 1300 the rich eat their dinner off bread, and at the end of the feast the trenchers, soaked in sauce and fat, go out the gate to the poor, who are already this morning beginning to gather at the outer gate because word of a feast travels faster than any horse. The butler's man, wanting hot water for scouring the Lord's silver, a groom from the stables, lingering, hoping, until Aldith drives him out with the paddle. The steward himself once appearing in the doorway in his good blue robe, and the whole kitchen tightens like a fist while his eyes move over the tables, count, weigh, judge, and then he nods, half an inch of a nod, and leaves, and the whole kitchen breathes out. You turn. Based now, Hamo shows you when, holding the long-handled ladle, dipping into the dripping pan, pouring the hot fat back over the pig's shoulders in a slow line, and the fat runs down over the skin, and the skin has begun to change, going from soft and pale to gold, and from gold in tiny islands to the colour of chestnuts, and the sound has changed too, from a hiss to a crackle, the skin lifting away from the flesh in blisters that snap. There is a whole language of sound coming off that pig, and by mid-morning you can read some of it. Wet hiss. Too much drip. All is well. Dry sharp crackle. Skin taking colour. Watch it. Silence. Fire's dropped. Feed it. Sudden flaring roar. Fat's caught in the pan, and that one you learn the hard way just before noon when the drippings ignite. It happens fast. One moment the pan below the pig holds 2 fingers of quiet golden fat. The next moment there's a whoomp of orange flame the length of the hearth, and heat slaps your face like an open hand, and you're off the stool, backwards, and the flame is climbing, licking up around the pig itself, black smoke boiling off, and you do the thing every instinct screams at you to do, which is exactly the wrong thing. You look around for water. No! Hamo. Across the kitchen in 3 strides, and he doesn't run. Even now he doesn't run, and that's a lesson all by itself. He takes the fire shovel, scoops ash from the cold end of the hearth, and throws it, 1, 2, 3 shovelfuls, along the burning pan, and the flames drop and choke and die under the ash, and the whole thing is over in the time it took your heart to beat 9 times. You counted. You don't know why you counted. Water on burning fat, Hamo says, and it goes up like the devil sneezing. Takes your face off. He looks at the pig, turns the spit himself once, checking. Scorch on one flank, a stripe of black no wider than a belt. He grunts. Sauce side. Jean's sauce will cover it. Sit down. Turn. Your hands are shaking, you sit down, you turn. And here's the thing you think about for the next hour, while your heartbeat comes back down and the pig comes back to its slow gold turning. Nobody upstairs will ever know. Tonight Lord Robert of Tateshale will be handed a slice of this pig on silver, dressed with a sharp sauce, and it will be perfect, and he will never know that at noon it was on fire, and a 14-year-old boy nearly threw water at it and blinded himself, and a slow, silent man saved the dish, and the boy with 3 shovels of ash. That's what a kitchen is. Upstairs gets the miracle. Downstairs gets the 9 heartbeats. Dinner, the castle's main meal, comes at midday, and the kitchen feeds the household first in waves, and you eat where you sit, one hand on the spit handle, the other holding bread and a bowl of pottage that Aldith brings you herself, and sets on the stool edge without a word, which is Aldith's way of saying she saw the fire and she's glad you still have a face. The pottage is thick enough to stand a spoon in, peas and barley, and a green taste of leek, and salt, real salt generously, because whatever else this life fails to give you, a castle kitchen does not lack for salt, and after 11 months you still haven't stopped noticing that. In the village, salt was counted. Here it comes in blocks the size of a church Bible. You eat with your left hand and turn with your right. You've learned to do most things one-handed. You could probably dress yourself in your sleep with one hand. Some nights you're fairly sure you have. In the afternoon the venison goes on the second hearth, and the kitchen splits itself in 2, and the heat doubles, and the air itself becomes something you chew rather than breathe. And somewhere in the middle of that long burning afternoon, between the second basting of the venison and the third rewrapping of the spit handle, comes the sound the whole castle has been leaning toward all day. The horn from the gate tower, 1 long note, then 2 short. Riders sighted. Lord Robert of Tateshale is coming, and everything now happens twice as fast. You hear the arrival the way you hear everything, through stone from below in fragments. Hooves on the drawbridge timbers, a hollow drumming, 30 horses worth. Voices in the yard, big outdoor voices, men who are used to being heard across fields. The chapel bell, rung in welcome. Somewhere above in the hall a shout of laughter, the Lord's own laugh. You know it by now. A laugh like a door slamming, and it means the greeting has gone well, and a greeting that goes well means the feast matters even more, because now it isn't just hospitality, it's momentum. And into the kitchen within a quarter hour come the strangers. This is the part nobody warns you about. A visiting lord's retinue doesn't sit quietly in the yard. It spreads through the castle like water through a cracked jug, and the low end of it, the grooms and pages and hangers-on, finds its way to the kitchen door, the way flies find the larder, and they stand in the doorway in their travel dust, warming themselves at your fire, breathing your smoke, and they look at everything, and they judge. There are 3 of them in the doorway now, young men, older than you, younger than Hamo. Tateshale livery, dusty. One of them, a groom with a soft face and hard eyes, watches you turn the spit for a while, and then says to his friends, not to you, in a voice pitched exactly loud enough, They still use boys here. At Tateshale we've a dog wheel. A little dog runs in a wheel on the wall and turns the spit all by himself. A pause, timed like a juggler's. Cleaner than a boy. Eats less. Smells better. His friends laugh. You turn the spit. Even, slow, and steady. Your face is already scorched red from 10 hours of fire, so at least no one can see it change colour, and that, you think, turning, breathing, turning, is the one mercy this hearth has ever done you. You are learning something this year that has nothing to do with cooking, and it's this. The whole world runs on people looking down. The Lord looks down on the knights who hold land from him. The knights look down on the squires on the grooms on the kitchen, and inside the kitchen the cook looks down on the undercooks and the undercooks on the boys, and the boys, at the bottom of everything in the smoke, holding up the entire tower of it, one turn of a spit at a time, the boys look down on nothing except the fire. And the fire doesn't care. The fire would eat a lord as gladly as a boy. There's a kind of comfort in that which you suspect the chaplain would not approve of. Master Aldous crosses the kitchen without hurrying and stands in front of the 3 grooms and looks at them. He doesn't say anything. He's holding a boning knife, not as a threat, simply because he is always holding something, but he holds it the way other men hold an argument. The grooms discover urgent business elsewhere. Dog wheel, he says to no one in particular, going back to the table. A dog can't smell when the fat's about to catch. A dog can't baste. A dog turns 1 speed and meat is not 1 speed. He picks up the cleaver. Fools buy machines to save a penny and spend a shilling on scorched meat. It is the closest thing to a compliment you will get today, and you tuck it away somewhere behind your ribs next to the small horn-handled knife, in the place where you keep the things that are yours. Now the hours before the feast compress, like the air in a bellows. The light through the 2 high windows goes from white to honey to amber. The bakehouse next door fires for the 2nd time, and the smell of the fine white bread for the high table, wastel bread, the good stuff, drifts through the connecting arch and lies down on top of all the other smells like a blessing. Petit Jean is building his subtlety at the end of the table, and a subtlety, if you've never met one, is a sculpture made of food, the medieval theatre of the table, and Jean's is a castle. Of course it's a castle. Gilded pastry towers on a base of hard sugar paste, with almond paste battlements, and a banner on the top tower painted, actually painted, with saffron dissolved in egg, so the banner glows gold, and it will be carried into the hall between removes and the whole company will applaud, and no one will eat more than a corner of it, and Jean has been building it for 2 days, and if anyone breathes on it wrong he will commit murder, and Master Aldous will hand him the knife. The eels meet their brute. The hares, roasted, rest under cloths. The chickens in Critanee, which is dish of chicken in a thick milk of pounded almonds. The almonds you pounded, your right shoulder pounded, an hour of ringing bronze, sit in their pot at the fire's edge, pale gold, freckled with saffron, and Master Aldous tastes it from the long spoon, holds it in his mouth, eyes somewhere far away, and then adds 1 more pinch of ginger with his fingers, and stirs once, and covers it. He tastes everything. Everything that goes up the stairs passes over that man's tongue first. Partly for the seasoning, partly, and nobody says this out loud because a cook tasting every dish is a castle's oldest and simplest guard against poison. If the Lord's food is going to kill anyone, custom says it kills the cook first. Master Aldous has been eating first for 30 years. He doesn't seem worried, or he did all his worrying long ago and has none left. The pig comes off the spit an hour before the feast, and coming off is a ceremony of its own. Hamo and the master lifting the loaded spit off the dogs together, on account, the whole 70 pounds of iron and meat, and carrying it level to the table, and drawing the spit out in one long smooth pull, while the pig settles onto the board with a sigh of crackled skin, and the smell that comes up off it at that moment, 10 hours of your shoulder in one wave of smell, is the closest to church you have felt since Michaelmas. And your right arm, suddenly empty of its task, doesn't know what it is. It hangs there. The hand won't quite open all the way. There's a hot wire of pain running from the base of your thumb up through the forearm into the shoulder and around the wing of the shoulder blade. And when you finally uncurl the fingers, slowly, one at a time, the joints crack like green wood in a fire. Tomorrow the arm will be wood. Tonight nobody cares. Least of all you, because tonight there is no such thing as a boy with a finished job. What carrying, says Master Aldous, and the last act of your day begins. The feast from below is a stair. You will never see the hall tonight, not really. What you will see, 40 times 50, is the stair. A spiral of stone steps, 22 of them. You know, because your legs count them without being asked, winding up from the kitchen passage to the screens at the low end of the hall. Up those steps goes everything. Every dish, every sauce, every loaf, carried by hand, at speed, hot in the half-dark, on stone steps worn slick in the middle by 80 years of exactly this, and coming down the same stair at the same time comes everything else, the empty vessels, the used trenchers, the boy in front of you, so that the stair is a two-way river of running food, and the whole trick of it, the trick your legs learned months ago and your mind still refuses to trust, is rhythm. Right of the newel post going up. Call at the turnings. Never stop on the stair. A boy who stops on the stair kills the boy behind him. At the top, at the screens, you don't enter the hall, you hand off. There's a hierarchy even in handing. You carry the dish up, and at the screens a servitor in clean livery, hands washed, hair combed, takes it from you and turns and walks it into the light and the music, and gets, for those last 30 feet, whatever glory a dish carries with it. You get the turnaround and the dark stare down and the next dish. You are the invisible half of a relay. All night, through the gaps in the screens, you catch it in slices. Candles, dozens of them, real wax, not tallow, so the light is white gold instead of greasy yellow. The high table under its canopy, a flash of the lady's sleeve, crimson. Music, a fiddle and a pipe, swimming over the roar of talk. Bunts for 3 full seconds while the servitor fumbles his grip. You stand at the screens with the chickens in Cretonese steaming against your chest, and you see the whole hall entire. The fire, the tapestries, the tilted laughing faces, the gold on the tables, all of it floating in candlelight like something inside an amber bead. And then the dish leaves your hands and you turn back into the dark and go down. 22 steps, right of the newel, calling at the turnings. They cheer the subtlety. You're at the bottom of the stair when it goes up, Jean carrying it himself, nobody else allowed within an arm's length, and you hear the cheer come down through the stone, and you hear, a moment later, faint but real, hands beating on tables. In the kitchen, Petit Jean's ears have gone red. Aldith says nothing but ladles him the first bowl of the good remaining brouet, and he takes it. And for one entire minute Petit Jean of Bristol, who trained under a Frenchman, is completely silent, and it is the happiest anyone has ever seen him. It's somewhere near the end of the second remove, with the hall roaring above and every hearth blazing below, and every soul in the kitchen 40 tasks deep. That little Rob, running with a pot, does the thing that boys who are 10 and tired and moving too fast among fires have always done. He falls. You see it in pieces, the way you see everything that happens fast. Rob's foot finding the grease patch by the second hearth. The pot leaving his hands, his arms going out, and the pot, which is not boiling water, thank God, thank all the saints at once, not the boiling water. It's the warm almond milk, but warm is still hot when there's half a gallon of it, and you are 10. The pot hitting the stone and bursting its contents up the side of his leg and across one flung-out hand. The sound he makes is not a scream. It's worse. It's a short, shocked, indrawn sound. The sound of a boy who has already learned that screaming in a kitchen costs you something, trying to swallow the worst moment of his week whole. And then the kitchen does the thing that, months from now, years from now, when you are old and telling this to someone, will still be the thing you tell. It doesn't stop. It can't stop. The feast is above. The stair is running. The fires are roaring. If the kitchen stops, the whole night falls, and so instead of stopping, the kitchen flows around the fallen boy like a river around a stone, and it deals with him without ever ceasing to cook. Aldith is there first, hauling Rob up under the arms, away from the hearth, out of the traffic lanes, all without letting go of her ladle. Master Aldous appears, looks at the leg, looks at the hand, and the ash-grey eyes measure the scald exactly the way they measure a fire. Skin's not broken. Milk was off the boil an hour. He'll blister, no worse. Aldith, cold water and clean linen. Then he sits by the door and plucks. And to Rob, whose face is white and wet, "You're not dying, boy. You're lucky, and you're clumsy, and one of those two will fade with practice. Cold water. Go." And a hand from somewhere, Dorby's, is already scooping the spilled milk from the floor, and Hamo has already restrained what's left of the pot, and Petit Jean is already saying, without looking up from his sources, that there is God's own plenty of crétinés sent up already, and no one above will ever count the difference. And inside 100 heartbeats the hole in the night has closed over as if it had never opened. Rob sits by the door with his hand in a bucket and his leg wrapped, plucking capons for tomorrow one-handed, tears drying in the fire heat, and every boy who passes him finds half a second to knock his shoulder or drop a word on him. Nothing much, small coins. But by the end of the hour the boy is upright inside himself again. Nobody here is soft, and nobody here is left on the floor. Both things are true at once, and that, more than any recipe, is what this kitchen has been teaching you all year. The third remove goes up. The fritters go up, hot from the fat dusted with the last of the weighed sugar, and the smell of them, hot dough and sugar and rose water, is a physical cruelty to every servant who carries them past their own empty stomach. The wine goes up and keeps going up, and you can chart the hour by the sound of the hall the way a shepherd charts weather by the sky. The roar deepening, loosening, the laughter coming in bigger, slower waves, a song starting, dying, starting again with more voices, and then, at last, it comes back down. That's the ebb tide of a feast, and no one warns you about it either. Everything you sent up comes back. Towers of used trenches sodden with sauce, bones, the wreckage of the subtlety. Dishes scraped and dishes barely touched, and all of it has to be sorted because nothing is thrown away. The sauced trenchers to the alms tub for the poor at the gate, the good scraps to the household's own mourning, the bones to the stockpot, the great perpetual stockpot, the pot at the end of the world, where everything in this castle eventually arrives. the fat skimmed and saved, the pewter counted, because the butler counts, the pantler counts, everyone above you counts everything, and if a spoon is missing, the whole low end of the castle will be turned out into the yard. Somewhere past midnight, the last dish is scoured with sand and cold water, until Aldith's raw hands approve it. The fires are raked and banked. Tonight by Hamo himself, no boy is trusted with the fires on a feast night, and Master Aldous stands in the middle of his wrecked gleaming kitchen and turns fully around, once, slowly, seeing everything, and says the word he says perhaps 6 nights a year. Good. That's it. That's the whole speech. And every soul in that kitchen stands a half-inch taller inside it, and would not trade it for a shilling. You go up to your sleeping place, the warm corner behind the flower store, and you are down on the sacks and gone before you have finished lying down, and your last thought, if it counts as a thought, is your right arm still turning a spit that isn't there, and it will go on turning in your dreams, slow and even and steady, all night, and the pig will never burn, and the fire will never die, and somewhere at the top of a stair there will always be one more dish going up into the light. Morning comes the way it always comes, too early and smelling of ash. But the morning after a feast is its own strange country, and you wake into it slowly. The castle is quiet in a particular heavy way, the way a man is quiet after laughing too long. The hall above sleeps late. Half of Tateshale's retinue sleeps where it dropped, and the kitchen, this one morning, moves at half speed, the survivors moving among the survivors, and there is, and this is the secret glory of the morning after, food, real food for you. The feast's honourable leftovers, the dishes that came down barely touched, are the household's by ancient unwritten right, and so it happens that on this grey September morning, what of nowhere, Fire Boy and Spit Boy sits on a stool, sitting at a table, and eats cold roast venison from the Lord's own remove, with a spoonful of Petty Jean's sharp sauce on white wastel bread. You want to know what the Middle Ages tasted like, from the bottom of the tower looking up? It tasted like that. Like eating, one cold morning a year, the exact food of the men who will never learn your name. The venison is dense and dark and tastes of the chase, of iron and smoke. The sauce bites the tongue, vinegar and pepper and something warm underneath. Ginger. You know it's ginger now. You pounded it. Your shoulder knows every spice in that box personally by now. The white bread is so soft it feels like a trick. Dobby eats beside you, and little Rob, hands shiny with goose grease on the blisters, eats a heel of the good bread dipped in cold cretonne. And Aldith eats standing, because Aldith always eats standing, and Petty Jean tells everyone again about the cheer, and this time everyone lets him. "Enjoy it," says Master Aldous, passing, seeing the whole table of them, his wrecked and feasted army. Friday's a fish day, Lord Robert stays till Monday, and the eels are finished. He lets that land. Which means the fish comes from the pond, and the pond means the boat, and the boat means boys. His eyes find you and Dobber with the certainty of a hawk finding 2 particular mice in a field. Eat faster, and this is how, an hour later, you come to be outside the walls, truly outside for the first time in a month. The castle keeps its fish the way it keeps everything, close and counted. 2 stew ponds in the valley below the walls, dug by men dead a generation now, fed by a leat off the stream, stocked with bream and pike and the eels that go down into the mud, and on fish days, and there are 150 fish days in a year. Listen to that number again. 150 days a year when the church forbids meat and every soul in the castle turns its hunger toward the water. On fish days the ponds are the larder, and this morning the larder needs emptying and you are the arm that does it. The morning is cold and rinsed and completely quiet, and walking down the track from the gate with Dobby and the net and the baskets, you keep having to remind your body that it is allowed to be here. Space, sky, air that smells of wet grass and sheep and absolutely nothing else. No smoke, no fat, no blood. And the strangeness of that, the nakedness of air with nothing in it, actually makes you lightheaded. 11 months of living inside a smell, and you only discover it by stepping out of it. From the pond's edge you can see the castle whole, and you stop because you almost never see it whole. It stands up on its rock with the mist still lying along the base of the walls, grey stone going gold where the early sun finds it, the towers, the banner, the whole impossible weight of it, and from here you cannot see the kitchen at all, only a thread of smoke rising from behind the hall roof, one thread among several, nothing, a hair of smoke, and you stand there in the wet grass and think, that's us. That thread is the fires, and the fires are the kitchen, and the kitchen is 140 fed people a day, and the whole vast stone statement of that castle, all its knights and its music and its painted hall, every day of its life, hangs off that one grey thread, and nobody looking up from this valley would ever know it. You've gone philosophical, says Dobby. It's the fresh air. Bad for kitchen boys. Come and hold the net. Fish in a stew pond is not sport. It's harvest, and it's cold, and it's mud. The pond has a sluice, and the pond keeper, an old man called Elias, who lives in a hut by the leat, and smells of waterweed and speaks to the fish more politely than he speaks to boys, has already dropped the water a foot overnight. So the fish are crowded and sulky in the shrunken pool, and the work is this. Dobby on one end of the long net, you on the other wading in. The water goes over your bare feet like a knife made of nothing, ankles, shins, knees. The cold climbs you, and the mud underneath is worse than the cold. A deep, sucking, secret-keeping mud that swallows your foot to the ankle at every step and gives it back reluctantly, with a long obscene kiss of sound, and somewhere in that mud are the eels, which is a thought you decide not to think. You walk the net across the pond, both of you staggering, gasping, laughing, in the horrible way people laugh when the alternative is howling and the net comes alive. That's the only word for it. The rope in your hand starts to shudder and jerk as the catch gathers, and by the time you drag it up onto the bank there are 24 bream flapping silver-brown in the grass, and one pike as long as your arm, ancient and furious, snapping at the air with a mouthful of backward needles, and Elias pins it behind the head with a forked stick and takes it up with a grip you'd use on a murderer. Mind the pike, boys. A pike'll take a finger and thank you for it. You load the baskets. The fish drum against the wicker. Your feet, when you finally get them out of the water, are dead white and belong to somebody else, and feeling comes back to them on the walk up the hill in long rolling waves of ache, and the loaded baskets bite into your shoulders, and it's uphill the whole way, and it is still, all of it, the finest morning you have had in a month because the sky was in it. Friday, then, is fish. And let me tell you what a fish day means in a castle kitchen, because it isn't a rest, it's a different war. The church forbids meat on Fridays, Saturdays in this household, Wednesdays in Lent, the whole of Lent itself, Advent, the vigils of feasts, half the calendar wears fish. and a lord's table on a fish day cannot simply be less than it was on Thursday. That would shame the house. So the whole art of the medieval kitchen bends itself around this one problem: making water taste like glory 150 days a year. The bream are scaled, and scaling is boys' work, and now it's your work. A knife held backwards, scraping tail to head, and the scales fly off in bright arcs and stick to everything. Your arms, your face, the table, they dry to little silver coins that you'll be finding on your body for 2 days. The pike, which is a noble fish, a fish for the high table, Master Aldous cooks himself, poached whole in a broth of wine and water and herbs, and served with a galantine sauce dark with cinnamon, and when it goes up the stair it goes up looking like a dragon on a silver dish, and Lord Robert, they say later, praised it aloud. The almond milk stands in for cream in everything, because milk and eggs are forbidden too on the strict days, and so again the mortar, again the bronze bell ringing under your fist, again your shoulder, and you begin to understand that an enormous share of medieval cooking is simply boys hitting things for hours, and that every silken sauce that ever slid onto a lord's trencher had a boy's aching arm dissolved into it, invisibly, like salt. Lord Robert stays until Monday. 4 days of doubled everything. And on the Sunday, something happens that you will keep for the rest of your life, in the place behind your ribs. Sunday after Mass, the kitchen breathes for an hour, and into that hour, down the stair, unannounced, taking everyone's breath with the wrongness of it, comes a lord. Not your lord. Lord Robert of Tateshale himself, stooping under the passage arch with a knight at his shoulder, into the kitchen, where lords do not come, and the whole kitchen freezes mid-motion like a startled field of rabbits, and Master Aldous puts down his knife and wipes his hands and stands. Lord Robert is not what you expect this close. Grey in his beard, a weathered outdoor face, eyes that move around the kitchen the way a builder's eyes move around a wall. He looks at the great hearth. He looks at the banked fires, the scoured table, the locked spice box, the hams in the smoke overhead. They told me the pike was your own hand, he says. It was, my lord. I ate a pike at Westminster at the king's table at the crown-wearing. He says it plainly, not boasting, a man laying one stone next to another to compare them. It was a larger fish than yours. It was not a better one. He looks around the kitchen once more, and his eye passes over you, over Dobby, over Aldith, over Rob's bandaged hand, without stopping, the way a man's eye passes over the individual stones of a wall. And then he says a thing that you will turn over in your head for years. A man judges a household by its hall, a soldier judges it by its kitchen. Halls lie. He nods to Master Aldous, one lord's nod, and goes back up the stair, and is gone. The kitchen stands silent for 3 full breaths. Then Petite Jean says, "He didn't mention the sauce," and the whole room comes apart laughing. Even Hamo, briefly, terrifyingly, Master Aldous, and the work resumes, and the day closes over the moment like water. But you keep it. A soldier judges a household by its kitchen. You are, it turns out, part of the judgment of this whole great house, invisible and part of the judgment, both at once. Everything down here is both at once. Monday, Tateshale rides out, 30 horses drumming over the bridge, and the castle exhales, and life returns to what passes for ordinary, and the year turns underneath you like a spit. October. The slaughter month begins. This is the season that makes the winter possible, and it is the bloodiest work of the year. The pigs that have fattened all autumn on the forest mast come in, and they are killed in the yard behind the kitchen, and everyone works the slaughter. Everyone! And you learn what your grandmothers all knew, that nothing of a pig is wasted. Nothing. The blood caught in pans by a boy whose job is only to stir it so it doesn't clot. And that boy is you, stirring blood with your bare arm in the cold morning while the steam of it rises into your face, and the blood becomes black puddings, and the fat becomes layered, rendered in the great pots for 2 days until the whole castle smells like frying, and the intestines, scoured in the stream, become the casings, and the bones go to the pot at the end of the world, and the hams and flitches go up into the kitchen, smoke on their iron hooks, where they will hang all winter over your head like a dark, delicious sky. Your hands crack in October. That's the month it starts. Wet work and cold air and fat and salt, and the skin across your knuckles dries and splits in little red mouths that open every time you make a fist, and Aldith shows you the kitchen remedy, which is rendered mutton fat rubbed in at night, and you sleep with your hands greased like 2 small hams, and it half works, and the other half you simply carry, the way you carry the yoke callus and the burn scars and the one shoulder bigger than the other. Your body is the ledger of this year. Everything you've done is written on it somewhere. November, salting. The salt comes in by cart. Coarse grey bay salt from the coast for the barrels, finer salt for the table, and for 2 weeks the kitchen passage becomes a salting house. Meat packed in salt in oak barrels, layer on layer, your arms buried to the elbow in salt that finds every single crack in your October hands at once. A pain so bright and total that the first time you shout, and Hamo, packing the next barrel, says the 11th word he's ever said to you. I. Just that. I. Meaning, yes, it is exactly that bad, and we all do it anyway, and now you know, and you're one of us. You'd be surprised how warm one word can be. December, and the cold comes down off the Welsh hills like something with a grudge, and the kitchen becomes the most beloved room in the castle. Everyone finds excuses now. The grooms linger. The pages invent errands. The old porter comes to warm his bones and pays for his place by the fire in stories, and some of the stories are even true. Outside, the yard puddles freeze, the well rope stiffens, the water in the basin by the door grows a skin of ice that you break each morning with your fist, and inside the fires roar and the hams hang in the smoke and the pottage rolls, and you understand at last bone deep the deal your ancestors made for 10,000 years. Everything, all of it, the hauling and the burns and the smoke in your lungs, all of it is the price of standing on the warm side of winter, and you pay it, and it is worth it, and Christmas is coming. Christmas in a castle is 12 days long, and the kitchen fights all 12 of them. It begins before it begins. Advent is a fast 4 weeks of fish and abstinence, the whole household leaning forward with its hunger sharpened on purpose, the church's oldest trick, and all through those lean weeks the kitchen is quietly building its arsenal for the feast to come. The dried fruit counted out, the imported figs and raisins of the sun that arrived at Michaelmas Fair, the honey, the flour bolted extra fine, the brawn set in its jelly, the boar, because there will be a boar's head, there is always a boar's head, carried into the hall on Christmas Day on a dish the size of a shield, with a roasted apple in its jaws and rosemary at its ears, while the whole hall sings, and getting the head from a live boar in the forest to a singing hall is a story with a great many boys in it, and you are by now always one of the boys in the story. On Christmas Eve you work until midnight, and then the whole kitchen, all of you, greasy and scorched and dead on your feet, climbs to the chapel for the midnight mass, and you stand at the back. The kitchen always stands at the back, and the chapel is small and gold with candles and blue with incense, which is the one smell in this castle grander than your own, and the chaplain's Latin rolls over you in warm waves that you don't understand and don't need to, and next to you Dobby is asleep on his feet with his eyes open, a skill you both perfected months ago, and above the altar the flames stand still in the still air, and for the length of one mass nobody in this castle is hungry or cold or a lord or a boy. Then the bell rings, and you file down the dark stairs and bank the fires and sleep, and Christmas morning falls on the kitchen like a glad catastrophe. 12 days. Feasts stacked on feasts. The hall eats, the household eats, the poor at the gate eat. Doubled arms, sodden trenchers, and whole loaves going out under the porter's eye, and the yard beyond the gate is a small grey crowd every single day, stamping in the cold, and you see them when you cross to the well, and you notice that you have stopped seeing them, and you make yourself start seeing them again, because 11 months ago, listen, this is the thing you make yourself remember while the fat freezes in the pans. 11 months and one bad harvest ago, that crowd could have been you. It still could. One dead master, one fire let die, one steward's whim, and the distance between the warm side of this wall and the cold side is the width of a door. Nobody in this castle says that out loud. Everybody in this castle knows it. It's the ground everything else stands on. On the feast of Stephen, the household turns half upside down as custom demands, and there is dancing in the hall that the kitchen hears through the stone as a kind of rhythmic thunder, and a boy from the pantry is made Lord of Misrule with a paper crown, and even Master Aldous sends up, unasked, a dish of fritters for the servants' table, and stands in his kitchen listening to the noise above with an expression you have never seen on him before and cannot name. And Aldith, following your eyes, says quietly, "He had a son. Fever. 6 years back. Would have been about your years now." And she moves off with her ladle, and you stand there holding that, and a great many things about the ash-grey eyes and the eat-something boy quietly rearrange themselves, and you never say a word about it to anyone, and you turn spits differently forever. 12th night ends it with the greatest feast of all, and the taking down of the greenery, and the last carol, and then January closes over the castle like grey water. And now comes the part of the year the songs skip, the long cold table of winter, January into February into the iron weeks of Lent, when the fresh food is a memory and the salt barrels are the world. Salt beef, salt pork, salt fish, stockfish, the dried cod like boards of wood that must be beaten, actually beaten, with a wooden mallet, guess whose arm, and soaked for 2 days before it will admit to being food. The kitchen's whole art turns to disguise and mercy. The sharp sauces earn their keep now, cutting through the salt. The spices justify their locked box. The dried fruit sweetens the grey days, and Master Aldous walks his stores like a general walking his lines, counting barrels, smelling the hams, tapping the flour bins, because his real work, you finally understand, was never cooking. His real work is making October last until May. A cook who runs out in March starves a castle in April. Nobody applauds the barrel that lasts. The barrel that lasts is the whole job. You're different by spring. You know it because of your hands and because of what you're given. Your hands first. Take them out. Look at them. These are not the hands that walked here. The palms are plated. The knuckles carry their little white winter scars. The right forearm is a cable. The burn marks on the back of the right hand have faded from red to pink to a shine you have to catch in the light. These hands can pluck a chicken clean in the time the chapel bell takes for nons. They can gut a bream in 4 moves without looking. They can judge by holding a palm out flat over the coals and counting whether a fire is a bread fire, a roast fire, or a sauce fire, and be right. Your hands know things now that you don't remember learning, and that is the actual truth about how a craft enters a person. Not through the head. Through 10,000 repetitions, down through the skin, and what you're given. In the week after Easter, with the kitchen deep in the glad green shock of fresh food again, eggs everywhere, the first greens, veal. Master Alder stops you as you pass with a basket and says, in exactly the voice he'd used to tell you to fetch water, "Sauces this morning with Jean. He'll show you the green sauce. Mind him when he talks about Bristol, it never ends, but mind him closer when he talks about vinegar." And he walks on, and that's it. That's the ladder moving under your feet. No ceremony. Kitchen boys don't get ceremonies. They get sentences like that one, dropped in passing, and you stand there with your basket, 14 going on 15, 11 months and change from a village nobody in this castle could find, and you have just been told to touch food that lords will eat. Green sauce, since you're wondering, is parsley and mint, and a little sage, pounded, guess how, with vinegar and breadcrumbs and pepper, and it is bright and sharp and tastes like the whole month of April, and the first batch you make alone. Petit Jean tastes from the spoon with his eyes shut, and is silent for a long theatrical Bristol moment, and then says, "It wants salt." Barely, but it wants it. Which, from Petit Jean, translated out of Frenchified Bristol into plain English, means, yes, you add the salt. You taste it yourself from your own spoon, the cook's oldest right and oldest duty, the bright green bite of it flooding your mouth, and up the stair it goes in its dish, in the 2-way river right of the newel post, and somewhere above you in the light, on a spring morning in the year 1301, a knight you'll never meet drags a slice of veal through a sauce you made, and doesn't think about it at all. Not for 1 second, and that, and you're smiling as you scour the mortar, is exactly, precisely as it should be. The whole point of the bottom of the tower is that the top never has to think about it. You hold up the world quietly or you're doing it wrong. It's a few weeks after that, on a warm, still evening in May, that you climb the wall. It's Dobby's idea, 'cause ideas like this are always Dobby's. The watch on the south wall is old Simon, who owes Dobby a favour over a certain matter of a certain barrel that we will not go into. And old Simon, on warm evenings, is willing not to notice 2 kitchen boys on the wall walk for the space of half an hour, provided they stay by the south tower and touch nothing and are, in his words, less stupid than usual. So after the supper service, with the fires banked and the light going long and gold, you climb. The stair inside the south tower is a tight stone spiral. 41 steps, cool as a cellar, and then a low door, and then, all at once, the sky. You've been living for a year and a half inside a room. That's the truth of it. A hot, roaring, magnificent room, but a room, its whole world bounded by the wood bay and the well and the stair, and now you step out onto the wall walk 50 feet above all of it, into the huge moving evening air, and the world unrolls to the edge of sight, and your chest does something strange and tight, and for a moment you have to put your hand on the warm stone of the parapet just to hold on to the earth. Look at it. The valley, gone soft and blue-green with evening. The stew ponds, 2 coins of gold water catching the last sun. The village down the road, you're almost home now. A scatter of roofs with its own small threads of smoke rising, every thread a kitchen, every kitchen afire, every fire someone's whole evening of work, someone's blistered hands, someone's turning arm, the road east, the actual road, the one you walked in on, running away over the shoulder of the hill toward the village you were born in, 2 days' walk, another world, and westward, where the light is dying, the Welsh hills, dark backs of land, one behind another, the reason this castle exists at all, the whole iron logic of the walls laid out in geography, the hills, the march, the border, the watchfire places. Men built all this stone because of what sometimes comes out of those hills, and then they built a kitchen in the middle of the stone, because a wall without bread behind it falls in a fortnight. They say you can see 15 miles from here on a clear day, Dobby says, leaning on the parapet chewing a stem of grass he's had since the yard. I count it in dinners. Everything you can see from this wall near enough ends up going through us. The fish from there, the eels from there, pigs out of those woods, corn off those fields, that's the bread, salt up that road, the wine comes up the river past that hill, and the spice comes God knows how far, further than the eye works. He spits the grass over the wall with great ceremony. We're the narrow part of the funnel, what? The whole world pours in, and it all goes through 2 doors and 1 stair and us. Below and behind you, from the kitchen vents, the smoke rises, your smoke, and standing up here you can smell your whole life drifting past at eye level, oak and fat and the ghost of the day's bread, and beneath you the castle is settling into evening, and you can hear it doing it. A horse shifting in the stables, the chapel bell for Compline, a woman laughing somewhere in the inner ward, the watch changing at the gate with a ritual mumble, and under all of it, so constant you have to remember to hear it, the fires. You can't actually hear the fires from up here, but you'd swear you can. You will hear those fires faintly at the bottom of your hearing for the rest of your life. You stand up there until the first star comes out over Wales, and old Simon coughs his diplomatic cough, and you go back down the 41 steps, down out of the sky, back into the warm, smoky dark of your life, and you sleep that night like something laid down at the bottom of a river. Now, I have been keeping something from you, the way the year kept it from Wat, and it's time. It comes in high summer on an evening in July, 11 months after the feast for Lord Robert. It has been a dry summer, the driest the old porter can remember, weeks without rain, the pond low, the stream shrunk to a mutter, the castle's timber, and hear this, because everything that's about to happen hangs on it. A castle in 1300 is not all stone. The wall walks are part timber, the stables, the storehouses, the kitchen's own roof beams, its wood bays, its lofts, all timber. All of it seasoned by decades and now cured bone dry by the hottest summer in memory. The whole castle sitting on its rock like a beacon that hasn't been lit yet. And in the kitchen, all day, every day, drought or no drought, the fires. It starts. Afterwards nobody will ever be able to say exactly how. They never can. In the roof of the bakehouse in the last hour of daylight. Maybe a spark up the flue, riding the draught, lodging in the dry thatch of the bakehouse loft where the faggots are stored. Maybe an ember in the ash that was carried out warm because it's always carried out warm, and it has never once mattered before. Fire doesn't explain itself. Fire just arrives. You're in the kitchen scouring the mortar when the smell changes. Understand what that means. You live inside smoke. You have lived inside smoke for 1.5 years. Smoke is the air itself. And yet, and this is the thing your body has become, some low animal watchman in the back of your skull, the same one that woke you when the great hearth went quiet on that first morning. That watchman sits up now and says, Wrong. The smoke is wrong. Kitchen smoke is oak and fat. This has straw in it. Straw and old dust and something resinous, and it's coming from the wrong direction, drifting through the bake-howler arch, thin and grey and utterly wrong, and you stand there for one heartbeat with the mortar in your hands, and then you hear, from the bakehouse loft, a sound like a giant slowly crumpling parchment. Fire! Your own voice, and you don't remember deciding. Fire in the bakehouse roof, and the whole world changes speed. Here is what fire means in a castle in the year 1300, and I need you to understand it completely, because your whole body already does. There is no fire brigade, there are no pumps, no hoses, no engines coming. There is a well, and buckets and hooks and hands. That's the entire arsenal, and against that arsenal stands a fire in a dry timber loft above an oven, in a drought, at the end of a rainless July, in a fortress packed with straw, fodder, wood stores, and 140 sleeping soon people behind one gate. A castle can shrug off an army for a year. A castle can burn to its stone bones in a night. Every soul inside these walls knows both of those facts the way they know their own names, and that is why, when your voice cracks across the yard, nobody anywhere asks a single question. The bell starts, the chapel bell, not rung for prayer now, rung hard and fast and ugly, the alarm stroke, and it will not stop for 2 hours, and under it the castle empties itself into the yard, knights in shirts, grooms, the steward with his robe unbelted, the lady's own women, everyone, because fire is the one lord everyone serves. Master Aldous is already in the bakehouse doorway, and the loft above the great oven is alight. You can see it through the ladder hole, a moving orange ceiling, and the crumpling parchment sound has become a roar with a rhythm in it. The sound of fire finding food, and he takes it in with one long look. The same look he gives a hearth, reading it, and then he starts giving orders in a voice you have never heard him use, not loud but with edges, every word cut square. The loft is lost. The loft is lost. Leave it. It goes for the roof next, and the roof touches the kitchen. He turns and his eyes are already counting his people. What dobbe, every boy. Buckets to the well, full line, yard to bakehouse, go. Hammo, hooks. The long hooks from the stable. We pull the loft floor down before it drops burning on the oven and spreads below. Aldith, the kitchen. Douse the hearths. A beat, half a heartbeat, in which everyone in earshot feels the size of that order. Douse the hearths. Kill the fires that have burned for 80 years. All of them. Nothing burns in this kitchen tonight but what the devil's already lit. Go! And the night dissolves into water. You will remember it in pieces, always. The bucket line forming in the yard like something the castle's body already knew how to do. 30 people. 50. More. The steward himself in the line, a knight of the household in the line, the world's whole ladder of rank melted in 10 breaths into one chain of wet hands, and you at the well end, hauling, the rope screaming through the pulley, bucket after bucket after bucket, your palms, your October-cracked, salt-taut, fire-plated palms, tearing anyway, going hot, going wet, and you not stopping, because the person you hands to a person who hands to a person who is throwing your water into the face of the thing that eats castles. The heat when the wind swings. A breathing wall of it rolling across the yard so that the whole line leans away like wheat, and then leans back and keeps passing. The sound of Hammo and 3 grooms tearing the burning loft floor down with long iron hooks, the planks coming away in shrieks of nails, dragged out into the yard, still flaming, swarmed and beaten and drowned the moment they land. Men stamping fire like men killing snakes. Sparks going up. That's the terror inside the terror, and everyone's eyes keep doing the same climb. Up the column of smoke to where the sparks fly loose across the dark, drifting toward the stable thatch, the hay store, the kitchen roof. And boys, the smallest boys, little Rob among them, stationed up ladders and along the wall walk with wet sacks, watching where each spark lands, killing each one like it personally matters, because it personally does. And Aldith, alone in the kitchen behind it all, doing the unthinkable with dry eyes, bucket after bucket into the great hearth, into the second hearth, into the third, each one dying in an explosion of steam and a smell like the end of the world, 80 years of fire going out backwards, the warm stones screaming and cracking somewhere down in their bones, until the kitchen, for the first time since it was built, stands black and cold and blind. She'll say afterwards it had to be done, and she'd do it again. She'll also never quite talk about it, and no one will ever quite ask. Somewhere in the middle of it, in the worst of it, when the bakehouse roof goes and the flames stand up taller than the wall, and the whole yard is orange as noon, you find yourself shoulder to shoulder at the well with Master Aldous himself, both of you hauling, and he looks at the fire, and he says to you, to himself, to the night, feed it every day for 40 years, and look how it thanks you. And he almost, you would swear it, he almost laughs, and then the pulley screams, and the next bucket comes up, and there is no more talking for an hour. They hold it. That's the plain sum of the longest night of your life. They hold it. The bakehouse is gutted, roof gone, loft gone, the great oven crack through its crown, but the fire never crosses the arch. The kitchen roof catches twice from sparks, and is beaten out twice by boys with wet sacks who will be men in the morning. The stables never catch. The hay never catches. Toward the small hours the wind drops as if bored, and the rain that stayed away all summer sends, unbelievably insultingly, a thin grey drizzle at dawn, hours too late, patting at the steaming ruin like an apology. And the bucket line breaks apart into 100 separate, exhausted human beings sitting down wherever they happen to be standing. You sit on an upturned bucket in the grey light with your hands open on your knees because they hurt too much to close, palms flayed, arms dead past feeling, eyebrows you will discover shortly singed, and you look at the black smoking bones of the bakehouse and at the kitchen standing whole beside it, whole, black-mouthed and cold and drowned, but whole, and something rises through your exhaustion that you're too tired to be embarrassed by, and it isn't triumph exactly, and it isn't grief exactly. The nearest word is fierce. This place, this hot, brutal, smoke-black place that has burned you, and worked you and salted your cracked hands for 1.5 years. Somebody tried to take it, the fire tried to take it, and everyone, the whole tower of the world from the steward to little Rob, stood in one line all night and said no. Master Aldous walks the wreckage at first light, slow, his face grey with ash so that his eyes for once match his whole head, and he ends his walk in the cold dead kitchen, standing in front of the great hearth, the drowned, steaming 80-year-old great hearth, and the whole surviving kitchen crew gathers behind him without being called, and there is a long silence, and then he says, "Well." He crouches in the wet ash, the way he crouched on your first morning. The oven's dead, bread from the village till it's rebuilt. The steward will weep. Let him. He reaches into the cold ruin of the hearth and turns something over. One ember deep in the sodden bed, one single coal still holding against all of it, a live seam of orange in its cracked black heart. He looks at it for a moment. Then he looks up and around and finds you. Of course he finds you. "Fireboy," he says, "bring me kindling, dry birch, we start again." And you do. Down on your knees on the warm under the wet stones, your torn palms stinging, your face close to the one live coal in the world, and you blow long, steady breaths the way Aldith taught you, and the ember brightens with each breath. Orange, then gold, and a twig catches with a sound like a whisper, and then another, and the flame stands up, small and clean in the black ruin of everything, and behind you, quietly, the whole kitchen watches the whole kitchen begin again, and by the time the chapel rings for prime, there is a fire on the great hearth of the castle, and a pot over it, and the smell of pottage climbing through the smoke smell, and up in the hall 140 people are waking, and every single one of them is hungry. Some mornings, that's what victory looks like. A pot of peas, on time, in the ashes of the worst night of the year. The weeks after the fire have a taste all their own, and the taste is mostly dust. The bakehouse has to be rebuilt before winter, because a castle without its own bread is a castle paying strangers for its life, and the steward, exactly as promised, weeps over every penny of it, out loud, at length, to anyone caught in range. Masons come up from the town, 2 of them, father and son, and a lime pit is dug in the yard, and for a month the castle's smells acquire a new top note, the hot, biting, throat-catching smell of slaked lime, and the kitchen crew works its ordinary murderous days with the knock of masons' hammers for a drum beat, and lends its boys to the building whenever Master Aldous can spare them, which is never, and he lends them anyway. Which is how you come to spend a string of August evenings carrying stone, and how you learn the second craft secret of your young life, the same one the first year taught you, arriving now from a completely different direction. Everything solid in this world is made of somebody's 10,000 small motions. The oven's new crown goes up one wedge-shaped stone at a time, each one cut, offered up, taken down, cut again, offered again, the old mason's hands moving with the same unhurried certainty as Hamo's hands boning a pig, and when at last the crown closes on its keystone and stands there holding itself up by pure geometry, the mason's son grins at you through the dust and says, "There, she'll outlive your grandchildren." And you believe him, and here is the strange thing, you will turn out to be right too. Stone ovens are patient. Somewhere in England there are ovens from those years still standing this morning, cold, full of leaves, waiting, and nobody who walks past them knows what you know, which is exactly how much boy work and lime burn and evening light went into a thing that patient. The first firing of the new oven is a small ceremony, kitchen-sized, no lords invited or wanted. The oven must be cured slow, small fires for a week, driving the last water out the mortar, and Master Aldous tends those little fires personally, morning and evening, the ruler of 3 great hearths crouching over a flame the size of a cat, feeding it twigs, patient as a saint, and on the 8th day the first true batch goes in, and when the loaves come out on the long peel, round-shouldered and blistered brown and knocking hollow, the whole kitchen stops work to stand in the smell of it. New bread out of new stone, and Petit Jean, moved beyond even his own control, is heard to admit that the crumb is nearly as good as Bristol. Nearly, he says. He's given the heel of the first loaf anyway. Some insults are how this kitchen says grace. Autumn comes round again, your second autumn, and the year begins to rhyme. The mast falls in the woods and the pigs go out to it. The pond is drawn down and the mud takes your feet again, and this time it's you showing a new boy where the eels lie and how to laugh instead of howl. The slaughter month comes with its steam and its blood stirring, and your arm remembers. The salt comes up the road, and your hands, which cracked again right on schedule in October, scream in the barrels right on schedule in November, and this time it's you who catches the new boy's eye when he shouts and says, "I." One word. You've been saving it all year. It is exactly as warm to give as it was to get. Because there is a new boy. There's always a new boy. That's the law of kitchens and the law of the world. And this one is called Adam, from a village north of yours. 11 years old, all elbows and flinch, and he arrived at Michaelmas the way you arrived, with one spare shirt and somebody's cousin's promise. And he looks at the kitchen the way you looked at it, like a mouth that might close on him, and he lets the fire drop on his third night. Of course he does, and wakes in terror at the wrongness of the quiet. Of course he does, and catches it barely, blowing in short, panicked puffs until a hand lands on his shoulder in the dark and a voice says, long breaths, slow, like this. And the voice, you realize even as you're using it, is not quite your voice. It's Aldith's lesson in your mouth. It's the master's patience wearing your face. That's what a kitchen is, in the end, not the room. The room burned and was rebuilt and will burn again someday. A kitchen is the knowing, handed down warm from palm to palm like a live coal carried against the wind, and now some of it travels in you. Little Rob doesn't cry at night any more, by the way. Somewhere in the last year, without anyone marking the day, he stopped. His scalded hand healed with a faint shine across 2 knuckles, and he shows it to Adam sometimes, casually, terribly, the way old soldiers show scars, and tells the story of the night of the great feast with himself considerably braver in it than the facts strictly allow. And Dobby, who was there, backs every word straight-faced, because that too is a thing this kitchen hands down. You carry each other's stories the flattering way. God knows the world will carry them no way at all. Dobby himself is leaving in the spring. He tells you on the wall walk, on another borrowed evening, old Simon coughing his diplomatic cough by the tower, a cook's place in a knight's household 2 valleys over, a real place, wages, a man's place, arranged by Master Aldous himself, who wrote, actually caused to be written by the chaplain's clerk, a letter about Dobby, in ink, and somewhere in that night's manor that letter now exists, saying in fixed black words that the bearer is honest, sober mostly, and knows his craft. Dobby has seen it. He held it, he says, very carefully by the edges. A letter, what? He's quiet for once, looking out at the hills going blue. My father can't write his own name. Nobody in my family since Adam, the first Adam, not ours, has ever been in a letter. He chews his grass stem. Words about me are going to be in a box in a manor when I'm dead. That's near enough to church magic, that is. You will miss him the way you'd miss a window, but this is the other law of kitchens. The ladder moves, or it isn't a ladder. Boys come in the gate with 1 shirt, and if the place is any good, and this place you have decided weighing everything, the burns and the salt and the smoke and the word, good 6 nights a year, this place is good. Then they go out the same gate years later as made men, carrying letters, carrying craft, carrying the fire against the wind. Master Aldous came in that gate himself, 40-odd years ago, a boy from somewhere, with something in a bundle. Nobody imagines the wide grey man was ever that. You know he was. It's the whole reason he never forgets to tell a boy to eat. And you? On the feast of St. Nicholas in your 2nd December, the steward's clerk enters your name in the household roll. You're read out in the passage outside the buttery from an actual page. Walter of the kitchen, called Wat, at wages of 5 shillings the year, with his livery of cloth at Christmas and his food as customary. 5 shillings will not buy the saffron in the spice box. 5 shillings would not keep Lord Robert's horse in shoes. And none of that matters even slightly, because you stand in the cold passage hearing your name, your father's name, read off a page in a clerk's voice, Walter, of the kitchen, and there it is. You exist, in ink, in the accounts of a great house, at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of the tower, holding it up. Your mother gets word of it by the carrier before Christmas. The whole village does, and the message that comes back past mouth to mouth down 2 days of road, until it reaches you by the well with your yoke on your shoulders, has been worn smooth by the journey to just this. She says you're to keep warm, and she says she always knew. Mothers always say they always knew. It's possible they always do. There's one more visitor I have to tell you about, because he brought the whole world into the kitchen in a wooden pack, and because of what happened the night he stayed. He comes in January of that 2nd winter, in the week of the Great Frost, and the Great Frost deserves its own moment first, because you have never been cold like this, and neither, God willing, will you ever be again. It comes down from the north in a single night, a cold with weight to it, a cold you can feel leaning on the shutters, and by morning the well rope is a rod of ice, and the bucket has to be knocked loose with a mallet, and the water in it grows a skin before you can cross the yard, and the yard itself rings under your feet like struck metal. Birds fall. That's not a saying. On the 3rd morning of it you find a blackbird by the woodpile, whole, perfect, dead of nothing but the air itself, and you stand there holding it in your cupped hands, this small frozen finished thing, and Aldith, passing with her arms full, says without stopping, "Put it down and get inside. This cold takes boys the same way." She isn't being cruel. She's been January. The kitchen becomes an ark. There's no pretending otherwise now, no errands invented. The whole below-stairs world simply moves in and lives around the hearths, the grooms mending harness in the corner, the porter's wife spinning by the 2nd fire, dogs, always more dogs than anyone admits to feeding, and at the gate, and you make yourself see them, the poor of the road standing in the alms line with their faces wrapped, stamping, and the steward, who weeps over pennies, doubles the dole without being asked, because even stewards understand that in a frost like this, bread given at the gate is the cheapest wall a castle ever built. Into all this, on the coldest evening comes the spicer. He arrives the way important things arrive in your world, as a noise at the gate after dark, and then as a stranger in the kitchen doorway with ice in his beard. A small, quick, dark-eyed man in 3-layered cloaks, leading nothing, carrying everything, one iron-cornered pack on his back that he does not set down until Master Aldous personally clears a space on the great table. And even then he sets it down the way other men set down a sleeping child. He is a pepperer, a travelling spice merchant working the winter circuit of castles and abbeys while the roads are frozen hard enough to walk fast. And yes, he says, warming his hands at your fire, frozen roads are good roads, mud is the enemy, cold is merely cold. And he says it in an accent that has been to more places than his face will admit. Master Aldous buys carefully, and watching him buy is a lesson worth a year of Sundays. The pack opens in layers, oilcloth, then linen, then small stitched bags, and the smells come off it in slow waves as each layer lifts, and the kitchen, without anyone ordering it, goes quiet and gathers. Pepper first, round black shot that the master rolls between his fingers, sniffs, bites, actually bites, one corn, and chews thoughtfully like a man reading. Ginger in grey, knuckled roots, cinnamon in curled quills that the spicer snaps to show the fracture, cloves like tiny black nails, and the smell of them so loud, so instantly everywhere, that Adam at the back of the crowd sneezes and everyone laughs, and the spicer laughs too and says the clove is the only spice that announces itself like a herald. And then, last, from inside his shirt, from against his own skin, a packet no bigger than 2 fingers, and inside the packet, folded in parchment, a pinch of dried red threads. Saffron. The crowd leans in an inch. The spicer holds it under the master's nose and names a price. And the price, you do the sum where you stand. The price of that half-handful of threads is more than your wages for 2 years. For flower parts. For the plucked insides of a crocus that grew in a field in Spain and was picked, the spicer says, by women working dawn to dark. 3 flowers to a pinch, thousands of flowers to a bag, and suddenly you're not in a cold castle in the Marches at all. You're standing at one end of a chain of hands, pickers and packers and sailors and carters and this small iced man. A chain that starts in a purple field under a sun you'll never see and ends in your master's locked box. And every link of that chain is somebody's arm, somebody's callus, somebody's 10,000 small motions. The whole world, it turns out, is kitchens. It's kitchens all the way down. The bargain is struck. The coin is weighed. The steward's clerk records it with his lips pressed white. And the spicer by custom stays the night, fed and warmed, and pays for his place by the fire in the coin travelling men have always carried. News and stories. And this is the night, listener. This is the small hinge moment I've been walking you toward. The reason I told you about the spicer at all. Because late, when the household stories are done and the kitchen has thinned to its own people, the spicer sits with his boots to the coals and looks around the smoke-black room with a merchant's counting eye, and then looks at the boys, at Rob and Adam, and at you, and says, to Master Aldous, conversationally, "You've a good kitchen, Master. I eat in 50 a winter. I know the good ones by the boys. Frightened boys mean a bad master. Lazy boys mean a soft one. Yours watch. All night they've watched. Everything. My pack, my hands, your face. Watching boys," he taps his temple. "That's a kitchen that teaches." And Master Aldous, staring into the fire, says the longest speech you will ever hear from him. "Nothing here is mine. The receipts came from my master, and his came from his. The knife work is Hamo's master's, dead before this hearth was built. The sauces came out of France through a Bristol bishop's kitchen. Ask Jean, he'll tell you till Lent. Even the fire," he nods at it, "the fire is 80 years old, and I only ever borrowed it." He's quiet a moment. The coals shift. A cook owns nothing. A cook holds. You hold it all together for your years. You hand it on with both hands. And if you've held it well, the boys hold it better. He stands and knuckles his back and finds you all with the ash-grey eyes on his way to the stair, and adds in his ordinary voice as if it were about turnips, "So watch." The spicer leaves at first light, his pack lighter, the box heavier, the frozen road ringing away under his boots, off to the Abbey 2 days north, carrying his folded piece of the world, and the frost breaks the week after, and the thaw drips from every eave for days like the whole castle quietly weeping with relief, and life goes on. But you keep that night whole. 50 years from now, an old man in another kitchen, you will bore boys who are not yet born with the tale of the man who carried Spain against his skin through the great frost, and they will only half believe you, and they will remember it anyway, and tell it wrong to boys of their own, and that, as you now know, is exactly how everything in your world actually travels. Hand to hand, mouth to mouth, kitchen to kitchen, warm side of winter to warm side of winter, all the way down the centuries to a voice telling it to you in the dark, tonight. Let me give you one more day, an ordinary one from deep in that second winter, because the feasts and the fires make the stories, but the ordinary days made the man, and there were 300 of them for everyone you've heard about. You wake in the dark behind the flower store, and you know before opening your eyes roughly what hour it is by the sound of the banked fire and the depth of the cold on your face, and both say, soon, not yet. You lie for 100 breaths in the warm hollow your body has made, listening to Adam breathe on the other side of the sacks, listening to the castle, wind working at the shutters, a dog down in the bailey, the small eternal tick and settle of a stone building being cold. Then you get up, because getting up is the entire secret. There is no other, and your feet find the warm floor and the day takes you. Fire first, always, coaxed up from the banked coals, the little liturgy of birch and breath. Then water, the yard black and stinging, the well-rope furred with frost, your breath standing around your head, the yoke finding its callus like a key finding its lock. Then wood, then the kitchen filling with its people, Aldith and her paddle, Hamo silent as furniture. Petit Jean arriving mid-sentence as always, as if his talk simply runs all night in the servants' hall, and he walks back into range of it. The pottage rolling, the salt fish, beaten yesterday, guess by whom, soaking in its third water. The bread coming through the arch from the new oven that already looks 100 years old, the way stone does after one winter of smoke. Dinner up the stair at midday, 22 steps, right of the newel, the halls roar above like weather, the afternoon slow list, 2 hares to case, a sauce for tomorrow begun, the mortar ringing under Adam's fist now. Badly, then less badly, your own hands freed for finer work, boning out a capon under Hamo's occasional eye. Your knife, the horn-handled knife your father made, still the only thing in this world that is fully yours, following the joints the way water follows a valley. No force, just knowledge. Supper up, supper down, the scouring, the counting, the banking of the fires, the night watchman's first cry from the wall, all's well drifting down the smoke hole with the first stars, and then the last hour, the hour that is nobody's but yours, when the kitchen is empty and banked and breathing, and you sit on the stool by the great hearth in the low red light, rubbing mutton fat into your cracked knuckles, one by one, slowly, an old man's ritual performed by a boy of 15, and you let the day drain out of your arms into the warm stone, and you think, or you don't think. Mostly you don't. Mostly you just sit inside the heat and the quiet like a loaf set to prove. And this hour, though you'd never say it aloud to Dobby or anyone, this hour is the wages, not the 5 shillings. This, the fire low and obedient, the larder counted, the castle above you, all its souls fed again, one more day pushed back against the dark, and your own 2 ruined, useful hands going soft and warm in your lap. You bank the coals. You check them twice. You will check banked coals twice for the rest of your life, in kitchens that haven't been built yet, in a future you can't see, It's in you now, like the callus, like the eye. You lie down in the warm hollow behind the flower store. And this is where we slow everything down, the way the kitchen slows at the end of the night, because the day is done, and this time, listener, the day is yours too. The fire settles. You can hear it from your corner, the small collapsing sighs of a banked hearth, coal shifting against coal, each sound a little further apart than the last, like footsteps walking away slowly down a long passage. The stones give back their heat the way they always do, patiently, all night, asking nothing. The wind moves over the smoke hole and makes that low sound in it, the sound the kitchen makes when it's sleeping, a long soft note, rising a little, falling a little. Adam breathes on the far side of the sack, slow and even. He doesn't cry at night anymore either. It took him one winter. It takes everyone about one winter. Somewhere above you, up through 8 feet of stone, 140 people are sleeping in the dark. The lord and the lady, the knights and the clerks, the porter and the priest. Every one of them fed, every one of them carrying in their blood, in their warm sleeping bodies, the work of your hands, the pottage and the bread and the salt fish and the sauce. All of it becomes simply them now, become breath and heartbeat and dreaming. And there is no monument anywhere in this castle to the boy who hauled the water, and there never will be. And lying here in the warm dark, you find you genuinely do not mind, because you know something the monuments don't. The wall keeps them safe, but you keep them alive, every day, quietly, from below. Your arms are heavy. Let them be heavy. They've earned it. Your hands ache, that low-banked ache down in the palms, but the fat is soaking into the cracks, and by morning they'll close again. They always close. Your body has learned to repair itself on schedule like everything else in this place. Your shoulder still carries the ghost of the yoke. Set it down. The yoke is hanging on its peg by the door. The buckets are empty and turned over. There is no water to carry until morning, and morning is not now. You're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. You have a name and a ledger and a knife with a horn handle, and a place behind the flower store that is yours, and that's more than the crowd at the gate has, and you never forget the crowd at the gate, and that too is part of what you are now. It's enough. Tonight, it's enough. The fire sighs again, further away now. Tomorrow there will be water and wood and the mortar ringing, and the stair, 22 steps, right of the newel post. Tomorrow there will be Hamo's silences and Jean's Bristol and Aldith's ladle, and the master's ash-grey eyes finding everything. Tomorrow the whole warm machine will start again at the coldest hour, the way it has for 80 years, the way it will after you. But that's tomorrow. Right now there's just this, the banked coals talking themselves quiet, the wind's one low note, the heat of 80 years rising through the sacks into your back like a hand laid flat between your shoulders. You close your eyes. Centuries will pass. The castle you know will change beyond recognition. The lords will go, one line failing into another, and the wars will move away, and the walls, with nothing left to hold out, will begin their long surrender to the ivy and the frost. The great hall's roof will fall in some winter, 300 years from now, and sheep will shelter where the high table stood. The kitchen's 3 hearths will go cold at last, truly cold, all the way down, and grass will seed itself in the cracks of the warm stones after the stones finally forget how to be warm. But the ovens, remember, stone ovens are patient, and the well will still hold water. And on summer evenings, people not yet born, in a world you could not begin to imagine, will walk through the roofless rooms with their children, and stand in a grassy square of ruined walls, and read from a small sign that this was the kitchen, and they will try for a moment to picture it. The fires, the smoke, the noise, and they will get it mostly wrong, and it doesn't matter because some of them, a few of them, standing there in the quiet, will feel something anyway. A warmth in the stones that isn't there, a smell of bread that isn't there. You, still faintly in the walls, the way smoke stays in wool, and in every one of their houses in that unimaginable world there will be a kitchen, smaller, stranger, humming with things you have no words for, and at the end of their long days they will stand in it, tired, warming something, feeding someone, and then they will bank their own fires in their own way, and check them twice, and lie down in the dark listening to the house settle exactly as you are doing now. Some things don't change. The tired body doesn't change. The fed household doesn't change. The last hour by the low fire, the one that belongs to no one but you, that doesn't change either. So let it come. Let sleep take you the way the warmth takes the stones, slowly from underneath. Let the fire sink to its lowest, safest glow. Let the sounds of the castle fade, the wind, the settling coal, the far dog, one by one, like candles being pinched out down a long table after the feast. Let your hands uncurl. They're done for today. Everything is done for today. The water is drawn, the wood is stacked, the bread is counted. The fires are banked, and you checked them twice. The whole castle is sleeping on the work of your hands, and now the hands can sleep too. You've earned this rest. You earned it bucket by bucket, turn by turn, step by step up a dark stair with the light at the top. Take it. The last thing you hear is the banked fire, one small settling sigh, very far away now, like a door closing gently in another room, and it's a good sound. It's the sound of everything being safe, and you let it carry you down. And dream of whatever dreams may come. Good night.